Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Warships Legends. My name is Spartan Elite 43 and tonight we have some Q&A to go over. Now, it's not my Q&A, but I got a couple shout-outs to give. First of all is a shout-out to my dude Degeneratio, or Degen as most of us call him. James is an awesome guy that supplies me with so much information. He's the guy that goes out and gets all the information, and then I just happen to get the links to him, and it makes my day a heck of a lot easier. So thank you, Degen, for tipping me off to this, because I'm not very privy to the whole Reddit thing. But Rowan up here, another shout out, Rowan HKC, posted the Q&A from the recent stream with Wargaming. So, with that being said, let's go over some of the clip notes. Alright, so, first of all, I didn't get to see the stream. But a lot of people have told me a lot of things about the stream, and I just wanted to come over, now that I've got an actual timestamp and layout for the whole thing. I wanted to go over some of them with you guys to kind of cheat a video out of it, right? So that's what we're going to do. So, for that being said, ahoy captains! For those that missed it, let's have a quick rundown on what was discussed on today's stream with Legends Development Director Kirill Peskov. For ease of use, I will preface each note with a timestamp that should be used on the YouTube version of the stream. So in other words, timestamp, and then you go to the YouTube version or the YouTube video of the stream, and you can go to that time during the video and get whatever you got. Now, this is gonna be a lot of reading, so hopefully you guys are ready. I know it's gonna be a bit of a longer video, probably 15-20 minutes if I had to guess. Not super long, but you know how I like to ramble sometimes, like I'm doing right now. So, first of all, what are the plans for the next generation consoles? We have plans to support those. The tech team has been working on it for a few months. We plan to port the game over first, and only once we are sure it is working as we want, will we start to implement new features such as ray tracing, improved graphics, etc. You will be able to use your old accounts on the new platforms, and that is PlayStation to PlayStation, Xbox to Xbox, of course. So, how has coronavirus affected game development? Well, it did affect us, and it did slow down development. A lot of work was done on moving jobs around to reduce time waste on various things. We learned how to release updates from home, and version 2.3 was the very first version we released fully from home. It was a bit of a challenge, it was a bit of a nightmare, but still, here we are. The next steps are to bring the team back in the office when we have all regulations and guidelines in place. We want to get everyone back in the office, but in the worst case scenario, we learn to adapt, and we will keep our schedule where we release a new update every 5 weeks. We can play with the scope of the updates, in case small features are not ready, and they will be pushed back. But we will continue with the pace of the updates to keep you entertained every 5 weeks. Unlike me, who tries to keep you entertained every single day. So, I kind of one-up them in that if, of course my videos are a little less effort than they put into their game. But, all I'm saying is I entertain every day. But we still love you. Anyway, what is the current state of aircraft carriers and submarines? We are looking carefully at submarines on PC and reading feedback. And submarines will not come first. But, if you look into that statement, that means submarines are coming at some point. If you read it just straight as it's written, that means that they are actually considering it, which is not that big a surprise, considering PC is, trying to implement them. Carriers will come, and they will come out first. So we will get carriers, and then if submarines come, they'll come afterwards. But we will start working on them shortly. We will deliver them sooner or later, and it won't be like, okay guys, here's a branch of new carriers, please grind. It will be more like maybe maybe a couple, maybe a few events like Yamato at the end of the last year, where we have production tests. Now guys, anytime these production tests happen, remember, a test is a test. A ship will be introduced or a line will be introduced. You test them out, they get numbers, and then it goes away. And then later on, kind of like we did with the legendary ships, you will get to use those ships and actually earn them for permanently. But anytime they have tests, just remember that they get pulled away at the end of the test. Just as a heads up. We will get the statistics on how they work in the real world, and then we will release carriers as a full scope. But to be short, carriers are a work in progress. Carriers will come first before submarines. No date yet, and it will take us a couple of iterations to get them. We definitely cannot work on two simultaneous branches like carriers and submarines, so we need to choose what will come first, and carriers will. So that brings us to another point about the World of Warships Legends development team. It's a small team, and I think that is what you guys get wrong a lot. A lot of people think of Wargaming as this giant company, and it is. Wargaming as a whole is massive. You're talking multi-million dollars, potentially more than that company. It's ridiculous how big Wargaming is. But the way Wargaming breaks up its development on its different games is that it has small teams. Those small teams work on that game. So we have a small team dedicated to World of Warships Legends. So keep that in mind. It is a small team of people that work together. Now, one thing that you get out of the small team of people that are focused on one particular project is the openness that you get, the community. You're able to reach out and talk to these guys, and it is fantastic to be able to reach out and talk to your developers and get answers so quickly. Now, they can't always say everything, we know that, but these guys are very, very open with what they're saying, and this goes into it. So we're going to go ahead and move on because, again, I start rambling, and I don't want to bore you guys too much. What are the plans on operations, especially PvE operations? No plans for this year, and the at least first half of next year. Something like a Halloween mode is possible, but not the dedicated mode like on PC. Do we have any plans on additional game modes such as Epicenter or Arms Race? We do have different ranked scenarios, and Arms Race is in the backlog. So that means we will get there sooner or later. I assume sooner rather than later, but I cannot tell you the specific versions or time frames at the moment. With ranked battles, it's definitely like 1v1s, 3v3s is definitely what we want to do. Current issue is we would like to see a tier 7 ranked, but we can see in our statistics that not so many players have tier 7 to participate. But we'll get there. Arms Race is one of the closest scenarios. We just need to prioritize this feature to start working on it. But it will be in the next feature we introduced. So Arms Race is looking to be coming. Epicenter technically has already been introduced into World of Warships Legends, so I'm not sure what they're going to do as far as bringing that into the main lines of games, but those of you who played the Yamatos in the event at the end of last year have actually probably played Epicenter at one point or another. So I would assume that it would be also up in here at some point. What is the backlog? Well, the backlog, I don't even need to read this, but the backlog is literally just a to-do list. Okay, and that's what they're saying here too. So anytime you hear a backlog, like if you order something and it's backlogged, that just means that they are out of stock. It's in the pipeline, but there's no guarantee on when it's going to come out. So that's what a backlog is, and that's what they're describing here. It's just a to-do list. They have a lot of things that people send them that they want to work on. They choose the most priority, and after they prioritize them, they bring them in order of prioritize. The next few questions were simple. Will they eventually come to the game? Yes or no? Armor Viewer? Yes. So we are getting Armor Viewer. A detailed post-battle results screen? Yes. A replay feature? Most likely, yes. A detailed statistic overview for the ships? Yep. More communication wheel options, the ability to ping the map. Yes, in the July update, we will see the first iteration of the quick command rework. This will include an anti-spam filter for quick commands, muting, and so on. Thank God. And the next iteration that will include the ability to give a sector alert using the tactical map will arrive an update or two later. Sweet. So we have both being able to ping the map and also being able to, have the ability to mute people if we have to. That sounds like a good idea. Like if somebody's pinging the map over and over again, you can just mute them and you won't get their pings anymore. That sounds like a pretty cool thing. Or of course the command wheel spammers that just drive everybody bonkers. Are there any further plans to improve spawns or change spawns? We're actually looking carefully at the data we get. So we will look carefully and make a decision after that. What about ship horns, end of July? So we will be getting ship horns at the end of July, and everybody can then spam those. And I'm assuming that won't come with a mute button, unfortunately. Actually, it probably will. They'll probably include something in the audio section, kind of like the Azure Lane or the voiceover mods, where you can just turn it off. So I'm assuming they think ahead. Like that's the thing about these developers is they actually play the game and they actually know what annoys the crap out of you, like because it annoys them as well. So I do like the fact that they are implementing, cost, like I don't know, it's an appeasement process for folks that just want certain things. So I can understand it. There's a lot of people that are like, I want horns, I want aircraft carriers, and they're very vocal about that. So getting them off your back is kind of a nice breathing room, I guess, for them. So while most of us are just like, whatever, it's horns, the rest of us that have been wanting them forever or whatever can be like, yay, we get horns. And then they'll find something else to inevitably spam wargaming about. Any improvements planned for secondaries in the near future? Yes. We'd like to have a dedicated button for manual secondaries, but the problem is there aren't many buttons left on the controllers. So we want to find a way to make the feature easy to use for all players, even in the heat of battle. The first iteration is currently being designed by our game development team, and we will have it released by the end of the year. Then we can collect some data and see where we need to go from there. Now, there's two things about this. First of all, I have an idea on how to implement this. Manual secondaries, you just have a modifier button. Usually, like, it'd be L1 for PlayStation, LB for Xbox. You use that, and then you press another button. That would be a modifier button. Basically, it doubles the amount of buttons you have on your controller. So we, as console guys, are used to that sort of thing. So if you want to implement a manual secondary thing, which I think a lot of people are requesting, but a lot of people don't understand why that is both a good thing and a bad thing. One, you get to select a specific target for your secondaries to fire at. Right now, they just kind of fire at whatever. Anything in range will start getting shot at. But if you use manual secondaries and target a specific ship, it essentially turns off all of the other secondaries. So if you're firing at a guy on the right side of your ship and there's a guy on the left side of your ship that's in range, he's not getting shot at by your secondaries. So keep that in mind. And that is one of the advantages of having automatic secondaries, because they would just fire at everything. But being able to focus specific ships with your secondaries rather than everything comes in handy as well, because if you have battleships, cruisers, and destroyers inside your secondary range, it's going to target all of them rather than one specific ship, like specifically the destroyer. I want the destroyer gone because torpedoes, not to mention the fact that he is the most vulnerable to my secondaries, so it makes sense. So I understand, yes, manual secondary control would be great, but you also got to consider the cons of having manual secondaries. Now, what are your thoughts on the Bureau and how the community responded to it? From a game perspective, it works fine. It's a new mechanic that lets us distribute any type of content. From community reception seems to be okay, but we'll need to wait until players have completed a few projects to see how our expectations fare versus actual production performance. In other words, we ain't even through the first project yet. There's already a lot of people complaining about things, and honestly, I don't understand why they're complaining. Like, it's really simple to complete the missions for the projects, and you basically, it's a way to get new things without having to put a bajillion hours into it. What's the problem with that? You know what I'm saying? Personally, I like the implementation of the Bureau. I like the variety that it could potentially offer us, whether it be new commanders potentially in the future, different camos, projects for new ships, that sort of thing, that can really make the game not so cookie cutter. I want to be, that's the one thing that I will say about World of Warships Legends in its current state. And it's mainly because it's a brand new game. It's only been out for a year. But the biggest concern that I have with the game is it's pretty cookie cutter. Each class plays essentially the same. Each commander for each nation is essentially the same. There's not a whole lot of changes between a United States battleship dispersion commander and the Japanese battleship dispersion commander. They have the same perks. It's just a different portrait. So I would like to see some differences there, and there is actually something further down in this that we'll talk about with that as well. But, you know, that's the biggest thing that I see with World of Warships Legends, is that it's so cookie cutter right now. But again, it's a new game. It's just a year old. So it takes time, and especially with a small development team, we've got to be patient. They're working hard. They're doing everything they can to bring us what we want. And I think they've done a pretty great job so far, as I've said multiple times. Booster conversion this year. It's in QA right now, so it'll come maybe in August, maybe September-ish, but it's not that far away. And that's not all the information about booster conversion, but I will not tell you anything more. Nice, so we're getting a surprise, but we're also finally getting the ability to hopefully convert multiple boosters at one time. Because right now it takes so long that I've got over, 2,500, maybe 3,000 boosters of some different types of boosters, and I can't be bothered. I'll convert enough to get me through the day, and that's it. I don't even bother. Will we ever have 155mm Mogami? We'll definitely get it in one of the further battle passes. It will arrive as a separate ship. So, something to look forward to for you Japanese fire spammers. What about weather that changes gameplay, like typhoons or cyclones or night maps? Night maps are coming. Weather effects are not planned at this moment. So, keep that in mind. Will we see a tutorial in the future? Good tutorials are very expensive in terms of development. If we could have gotten one from PC, we probably would have a long time ago, but to produce a really strong tutorial would take a huge amount of resources and effort. So now we are thinking of how to do it less expensive, maybe using some videos or combining videos and in-game tutorials, and at the moment there is no good non-expensive way to do so in Legends. And there's a lot of research done in other wargaming titles that suggest tutorials do not work that well. Yes. So yes, they could implement a tutorial. It's expensive, but they could do it, but what they're saying is wargaming has done tutorials in the past and they are ineffective. So you put all this time and effort into creating a good tutorial and people don't use it, or it doesn't make any difference. Sorry about that. I had to sneeze. Anyway, so that is why we don't have a tutorial. That's why community contributors are so important, and being able to tune in and watch videos of people who actually make videos and potentially every day and might know a little bit about what they're doing. Personally, I focus on the entertainment side, but I've been known to drop a hint or two about how to play the game. What was the biggest challenge in working on crossplay between PlayStation and Xbox? First of all, we just didn't know how to do it. It was a big learning curve. We had a lot of questions for and communications with the platforms, as they both have their own policies and not everything was clear. So with literally every step, we had to go to the platforms and see how we could implement everything. And that took us about 3 months or so just to agree on implementation details. The technical solution was not that complicated. The complicated part is down the road, working on the cross-platforms friend lists and cross-platform divisions. And no timelines for those features, as it's hard to estimate how development will go. So that seems to be the kicker that's right now. Trying to figure out how we can implement cross-platform divisions and friends lists so that you can invite other guys from other networks over to your division, which I can see being an issue. I can. Now, what would you have done differently over the past 15 months on Legends development? And what ship would you most like to see come to Legends? I'm a huge fan of British CLs, so sooner or later Minotaur will come out to Legends. So there you go. There's another ship on the radar for coming in the future. The Minotaur will be coming in the future. And I will be very happy. As for the first question, as the person responsible for every mistake on the project, of course I would like to have not have any of those. But on the other hand, every mistake is a learning experience. Legends is doing pretty fine in terms of players and perception, and if we're doing more or less fine, that's a successful strategy, so it should be continued. So that's a more realistic answer. In other words, there have been a few mistakes. We acknowledge that there have been a few mistakes, but we try our best to learn from our mistakes and move forward, trying to eliminate more mistakes in the future. So, not saying that they're talking about specific things, but I'm just saying, we still love you, even if you do screw us over from time to time. What about the clans? We haven't started yet, but we will start shortly working on the clans. We are currently designing best scenarios, and we'll start implementation in a couple months. Clans will arrive, clans are a prioritized feature, and development will start soon, but no ETA. Is there any plan to implement a quick command log chat box? July. It will arrive in July. Are there plans to display consumables on usage by friendly ships? For example, an icon that shows if ship next to us is using radar. Not planned for now. We don't want to clutter the screen with UI. So for now, we want to implement the battle log and see how that goes moving forward. Fair enough. Is it possible we see alternate... Yeah, and as a YouTuber, personally, we don't want the screens to be cluttered, because half the fun of the game is just a nice open ocean with people shooting back and forth at each other. Just saying. Is it possible we see alternative lines in the future? For example, a secondary focus United States Navy line, or German battle cruisers, etc. Is there anything that might come that PC doesn't have? Of course, we'll have alternative lines, but we'll still use content from the PC team. The Legends team is not that big, so while we can reorganize and rebalance those ships, we just have to use the content from PC, or it'd make production extremely expensive. So yes, alternative lines will appear, but I cannot give you exact timelines, though that is something we're working on. The U.S. Navy cruiser lights are the first, and we just got those. Is there anything you can announce that has not been announced for this year? Are there any new ship lines or ship nations this year? Yes, there will be one new nation coming this year. Anybody want to take a guess? Huh? There will be one alternative line this year, and there will be one full line of the new class. Speculate away. So here's my guess. The new nation is going to be the Italian Navy. Just a guess. There will be one alternative line that will likely be the British light cruisers. And there will be one full line of the new class, which obviously by new class, everybody knows that that's likely to be the carriers at the end of the year. So, yeah, just a guess. So by the new, unless of course they're talking about new class being, the alternative line, so light cruisers or something like that. But if this is the case, then the new nation, I'm just going to take a guess and say it's the Italian Navy. Then we're going to go with the British light cruiser line. And then the full line of new class, I'm just going to say, is probably going to be Japanese carriers. And the reason I say Japanese carriers is because Japanese carriers are kind of like the original carriers. Yes, the U.S. carriers and Japanese carriers are kind of like the OGs when it comes to carriers, and are definitely the most famous carriers. Especially, I can think of a few carriers right off top of my head for the U.S. Navy, like Enterprise and Hornet, and can't remember every one of them. Enterprise and Hornet come to mind right off the top of my head, though. Anyway, can we get a training room, please? When we get closer to more competitive modes, we will get the training room as well. In other words, when clans come out, the training room will as well, which gives people a way to train with their clans. Makes sense. Will we get the Des Moines? Will we get the Des Moines? I can't talk sometimes, guys. We can't say anything about that. There are a couple legendary ships that will come, but it's not time yet to disclose them, especially when I say a legendary destroyer will come, the legendariest destroyer. That's not only about keeping it in secret, but we still need to understand how the community consumes these new research projects. We can put a new legendary ship in the game, maybe every second update, but would the community be able to consume it? That is the big question. If you come and you have 10 projects to research, I believe you'll be a bit frustrated. Paralysis by choice is a real thing, and they are not wrong. You got to think about it from a new person's standpoint. If they come into the game and there's a bajillion lines to start, there's a bajillion projects to start, what are the odds that they just immediately go, oh my god, I'm in over my head, and just stop playing? That's what they're trying to avoid. But, that being said, they're going to keep an eye out for how quickly we are able to complete them as well, and then they'll add content based on that. Oh, Phil, what about if we ask the community if someone wants to do a whole transcript of this Q&A? Sure. Definitely not why I'm doing this, especially if we get them something special. Definitely not why Rowan did this. Sure. Either way, we appreciate it, Rowan. Anyway, do you like long walks on the beach in the evening in the sunset? In the evening, in the sunset, in St. Petersburg in November? In other words, no. Will there be any new weapons arriving in the future? Weapons, nunchucks, missiles? No, we're still keeping the setting of the time frame of World War II, World War I. Are there any plans in the future to nerf water? Nerf water, is it too flowy? I think it's too wet, too overpowered. Let's make it gel. Need to dry it up a little bit. What do you think of the current state of commanders and their development, and are there any adjustments or changes in the future? Mostly it fulfills the request of the feature, and we're finding more ways to utilize them, like Bureau. Yet, there are a couple issues to be solved. First of them are legendary skills. We can see legendary skills are not legendary and desirable enough, and that is something that we are working on, and traditionally, in our estimates, and no promises, there will be a legendary perk rework this year, and then we'll see how it's appreciated and consumed by the players. There are a couple more plans, but we need to get the idea, or get the data, of how the legendary rework will go. It's a very interesting feature and a very powerful one. We just need to see how best to use it and how to make sure we don't break the balance by introducing very powerful perks. Probably no third inspiration slot in the foreseeable future. Are you sure, Wargaming? I can think of a few, uses for a third inspiration slot. That's all I'm saying. The team thanks Kirill for joining the stream and says goodbye to Kane. The Sailing Robin and Prince continue streaming for another hour, showcasing California and the Warhammer 40k content. A second stream is announced for this Friday, where they will showcase Flint and Monaghan. Sweet. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed. I know it was a bit of a longer video. Thanks again to Rowan HKC on Reddit for making sure that we have this, that we can, read to everybody. Also, again, thank you to DGen for sending this to me, because you're definitely my Reddit guy. I don't go on Reddit very often. So, yeah, that's a thing. So, thank you guys for joining me. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed. Hopefully, you guys got the answer to some of your questions or have gotten excited for things that are coming. So, if you like what I'm doing, punch the like button, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, I will see you in the next video.